My name is Monk Rowe, and we're filming at Hamilton College for the Jazz Archive, and I'm really pleased to have Ann Rabson with me today. And I will introduce you as one of the rare working musicians, I think, that I know.
Is that right?
Well, most of the people I know, they play music, but they also do a lot of other things. They teach or, you know. So congratulations on that.
Well, congratulate my manager on that.
Yeah, that is an important thing. We'll talk about that. But I'm curious, where do these music genes come from in your family?
I don't know. I'm not a biologist or anything, but no, yeah, everybody in the family plays. My father, I guess, his family thought of musicians as being, you know, basically one up from beggars. He was raised on the Lower East Side, and you know, these klezmer musicians, and it was not looked on as a important thing. And so although he played music, he went to Cornell, and he got a degree, and he was going to write the great novel, you know, be a writer, but then he discovered mathematics, and he became a mathematician. But he always played music. And when I was coming up, I thought grown-ups always played music. I thought all grown-ups played music. I assumed that I would be playing music. And my brother was the one that got the lessons. I was not, but when I'd always wanted to play. And so, you know, as an adult, as an older kid, I did.
Was there, what was the feel like in your neighborhood? Was it a friendly, family-oriented type neighborhood?
I lived a lot of different places. My father was a college professor who moved every 4 years because he never got along with the administration. So a lot of neighborhoods, but to tell you the truth, I was a very, very, what do you call it? I was a kid who pretty much stayed to myself. I really wasn't really fond of other people. I'm still a little bit, but as a kid, I liked my solitude even more than I do now, and but I listened to music, and music was something that really, I didn't play until I was like in high school, but I always listened to it. In fact, when I was a little kid, if my brother and I behaved ourselves well, which didn't happen all that often, but if our parents deemed that we had behaved ourselves well, we were allowed to listen to music as we went to sleep. That was, you know, but it was usually like Gilbert and Sullivan, and we loved it, you know, all of it.
Oh. Were your tastes usually not aligned with the kids who were your age?
Absolutely, absolutely. When I was in 7th grade, they dubbed me Jazzbo, and they made fun of me. Well, I loved jazz. I still love jazz, and you know, I was listening to bop. I mean, I was just really into that, but I was also, you know, I was very lucky because the popular music when I was coming up was pretty cool, some of it. I mean, I really loved Bo Diddley and Little Richard and, you know, people like that, Ruth Brown.
Were you a word person when you listened to the music? Did you really pay attention to the words?
No, I really didn't. And I think part of that comes from my jazz roots, which are really not vocal roots. My father... Well, my family had all kinds of music, no blues in our that came later with me, but I remember we had like Mary Lou Williams, 78. That was what was records when I was a kid, and you can hear her music in my music, and you can hear her music in my brother's playing. My brother's a jazz pianist, doesn't play any blues, and I'm a blues pianist, don't play any jazz, and you can hear Mary Lou Williams. Her early work, this is when she was a boogie-woogie person out of Kansas City.
Did Mary Lou Williams also, I don't want to read anything into that, but did she represent something to you being a woman professional musician?
You know, it's absolutely true. I'm not sure I made the connection, but I know, particularly because I didn't start out playing piano, and when I started out playing guitar, there were no women I could look at except Sister Rosetta Tharpe and of course Memphis Minnie were the only two who I could look to and say, these women play guitar. And when I was just learning to play guitar, I was, I think, a junior in high school, and I had this wonderful boyfriend who turned me on to just all kinds of wonderful things, especially music. And he took me to lots of concerts. And one of the concerts he took me to was a young woman named Odetta. And I loved her voice. You know, it wasn't really my favorite kind of music that she was doing at that time, although I liked it, but she was playing the guitar. And that meant a lot to me, yeah.
Was there an, this may sound silly, but was there an issue as far as being a non-feminine thing to do? Like, if you play guitar, you can't grow your nails long, right? And in junior high, isn't that kind of...
Oh, I was not.
You were like not
I was really
concerned.
I was really isolated. I really isolated myself. I hated school. I didn't enjoy the society of people much. But, you know, and as I got older, of course, male musicians who couldn't play as well as I did, I mean, I've heard, oh, you can't play guitar, women shouldn't play guitar because a guitar is like a woman, it's shaped like a woman. Or, I also heard, women shouldn't play guitar because, look, it's a man thing, it's got that thing sticking up. So, you know, wait a minute, which way is it? So, but I didn't pay any attention. I knew what was going on. But what was a problem was getting work. When I first started out, I was living in Chicago. Well, I'd actually played some before then. But when I was really ready to come into the professional world seriously, I was living in Chicago and I couldn't get auditions. I mean, I don't think I've ever auditioned for a job I didn't get, but they wouldn't pay any attention to me. I mean, I'd show up with my acoustic guitar, this is in Chicago, and they'd say, oh, we don't have folk music here, and I'd say, well, I don't play folk music, I play blues. And they'd look at me like, what? You know, well, yeah, right, come back next Saturday. So maybe they did that to everybody, but I got the feeling, well, I also got the feeling that if I'd go to bed with them, it might have been different. I mean, you know, I was a lot younger and prettier and all that. Well, not prettier, but I was younger. So.
And that would have been a club you're talking about, club scene
Yeah,
you're trying to
absolutely.
get into.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
And were you performing mostly that would have been as a solo performer?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, most of my career has been solo. I love, as you probably found out, I love playing with other people, but mostly I play by myself. And I did play some in Chicago, but I played for nothing. I played for, you know, the Job Corps Center. I played for veterans hospitals. It was when the Vietnam War was going on. There were a lot of paraplegic. You know, I played for them. They, you know, great audience. But in fact, the Job Corps. I played for the Job Corps one time, and there was this young comedian who was also a guy named Richard Pryor. He was so funny, and I've never seen him funnier than he was at that show. I mean, you know, never on television, never in the movies, never nothing. He was so funny and so. I mean, he was playing to these Job Corps kids, and it was just terrific.
And this would have been the early 70s?
Late 60s.
Late 60s.
Maybe.
What?
I left Chicago in '71.
Okay. What would a club date pay back then if you could get one?
If you could get one, $50.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, they probably still pay They pay $50 for people who, I mean, I've had a lot of, people say, oh, you know, you're a woman and it's, you know, has it been hard? I don't know. But the truth is that I've had a lot of, it's hard to say that anything's hurt my career because my career is so much better than I ever expected it would be. I mean, I expected I'd always be playing for $50 and, you know, having all that trouble. And really, the blues revival and, well, the fact that I learned to play the piano, too, that helped. And I've had wonderful management, and I've learned. I mean, I love music.
Let me just rewind a little bit. I've read a couple times that you credit Big Bill Broonzy with like this aha moment or something.
It was very much a, what do they call it, a epiphany, I guess? Yeah. I was 4 years old, and I heard live on the radio, college radio, a Purdue's radio station, I heard Big Bill Broonzy playing live on the radio, and I was just blown away. I mean, I'd heard lots of music in my home, but it was like this was my music. It was like, and he was singing, you know, looking back, I know he was, one of the songs he sang was, I'm going to move way out on the outskirts of town. And I know that as a kid, you can't really understand the sort of sexual innuendos and all that. But what came through to me was the loneliness and powerlessness. And I mean, I was 4 years old. I had those feelings, and And it really, I'm getting goosebumps. I mean, it really changed my life. I always thought I was 5 years old and it was 1950. But later in life, like a couple of years ago, I met Studs Terkel. And we were talking, and he asked me, you know, he was a great interviewer. He asked me, when did I first hear blues? And I told him, and he said, oh no, he said, that wasn't 1950. He said, that was 1949. I was with him on that trip.
No kidding.
Yeah, so, you know, it all comes around.
Oh, that's a neat coincidence.
Yeah.
Were you able to go to, who could you go to in your family or whatever, and you're 4 years old, and like try to share this feeling?
My father. Absolutely. My father, he was so excited that I was excited about music. He went out and, you know, got records and showed me he could play boogie woogie, and he showed me some of that, and definitely, you know, I mean, my brother and I were not on real good terms through my childhood. And my mom was, you know, she was really busy and stuff, but my dad was, he was really the one who encouraged me, and is still encouraging me.
That's great. Was there a point when you were a teenager or whatever that you really decided, I want to be a professional musician?
Oh, that's a good question. No. There was no time when I thought I was going to do anything else. Well, that's not quite true. When I was, you know, I guess I was probably in 7th grade, 6th grade or 7th grade, I thought maybe I wanted to be, you know, a vet or a forest ranger. And there were all these reasons not to be. I couldn't be a vet because I was a terrible student. I mean, my grades, I was lucky to, they passed me because my parents were college professors. I mean, I didn't even show up for school half the time. Don't tell my students that. And the forest ranger, at that time I was told that they don't hire women as forest rangers. And they probably didn't. But when I started playing, which wasn't really until the summer after my sophomore year, summer after my sophomore year in high school, I got a guitar. And I'd always wanted to play the guitar. I always wanted to play anything. And I mean, I learned within, I locked myself in a room. I was at a camp. I was at a camp in Vermont at Goddard College. Very sort of radical,
yes.
And leave the kids alone, they'll do what they want. I locked myself in a room for a month, and I learned, maybe it was 2 months, and I taught myself to play the guitar. I didn't know that you couldn't do that. And then when I came out, I played gigs. I mean, it was like, and the same thing happened with the piano. I mean, when I decided to learn to play the piano, it was not at all long. I mean, the first Sapphire album that came out, well, the tape we put out, I mean, I'd only been playing piano for a few years. And I still, you know, I can hear that it's not very good, but nobody else can. You know, because people are just, the piano is just something, people just love the piano. Well, the saxophone, of course, because I don't play.
But you have a very muscular style on both your instruments.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the exact right word, but I just love to watch the way you snap your fingers down on the guitar, and it seems, well, it works.
I think of it as, I could think of both of them as percussion instruments.
Mm-hmm.
But the guitar, again, you know, I was listening to Broonzy, I was listening to Leighton Hopkins, Brownie McGee, you know, these guys. There's a style of guitar called Piedmont style, which I didn't know, but that's what I was playing. I didn't realize it until I moved to Virginia and fell in with all these people who played Piedmont guitar. They said, oh yeah, that's what. So, but yeah, that I do play, I guess it's you know, I'm kind of ambidextrous. That doesn't hurt. I really don't think it hurts. It allows me to have strength in both hands.
Okay. Did you have major influences on the piano? People that you know?
How many hours do we have here?
Yeah.
No, my first, well, of course, Mary Lou Williams and all those boogie woogie guys, because my dad got me these, you know, albums with Pete Johnson and Pinetop Smith and Albert Ammons and Meadlux Lewis and, you know, on and on. So that really influenced me. But this guy who I met when I was a junior in high school, played a couple of things for me. He played a man named Jimmy Yancey, who, you know, if I had to have only one influence, that would be it. I mean, and it sounds so simple what he does. And I truly believe in making things sound simple, even if they're not, because there's a real beauty in that. And then Leroy Carr, who I guess he's really more of an influence on me vocally than as a piano player, but he was a wonderful piano player and he wrote wonderful songs, most of which I don't do. The only one of his I do is Midnight Hour Blues.
What attracts you to do somebody else's songs?
That's a really good question. If it's got great music and okay words, I'll probably do it. If it's got great words and not very interesting music, I'm not doing it. And there have been cases where there was one song, and I'm embarrassed to admit this. Actually, this happened several times, where there'd be a song, I'm not embarrassed. There's a song that's I really am inspired by the music. I mean, I don't copy the music, but I'm really inspired by something about the music. But the words just do nothing for me. And I'll take it and I'll make it my own. Mm-hmm. Or another thing is a song that's done so much that I'm just so sick of playing it and hearing it, like Stormy Monday is a good example. Great song, but oh, come on, So I wrote another song with a similar feeling and similar changes, but I added a minor here and some, what are they called, altered chords or
mm-hmm.
Substitutions or something.
Yeah,
some chords, and I didn't know what they were called. I just knew that I wanted to do them, and you change it, but it was inspired by another song.
You said something almost in passing the other day. I think it might have been the brief rehearsal we had, and I almost felt like saying, "Oh, get out," because you said, "I don't know anything about music." At rehearsal, you said, "I don't know anything about music." I think you were talking about the chords or the form of the song or something, but I thought that was so interesting a thing for you to say.
I don't know the names of the chords. I do make a lot, and I'm learning them. I mean, I've learned some of them. I mean, I've learned sort of the basic chords and what they are, but there are a lot of chords I play that I have no clue what they are. And I'll ask people, "What is this?" And I'll ask like half a dozen people who know a lot about music, and they'll give me different answers.
Oh.
See, that's why music isn't, it's not like arithmetic where it's always, the same notes can be a different chord depending on factors I don't understand.
Right.
But I can hear a lot. I'm not a religious person, I'm not a spiritual person, but I really feel that my music is best when I just get out of the way. And something, it's a force or something takes over, and I know that you've experienced that. And that's when that's why we play music, mm-hmm. is that moment when you're not yourself anymore. You're just a conduit for something.
Well, I can tell you that schooled musicians are oftentimes envious of that ability to play things that maybe you don't know what they are, but you know they sound good. And because it happened to me, getting out of college and feeling like I knew everything, and then getting in with groups that were basically self-taught musicians and seeing the way they operated and being envious of that in the hearing that they had developed.
But you know you can develop both, because you've obviously got both. My sister went to the New England Conservatory of Music, and now she's teaching at Berkeley. And she is one of the most passionate improvisational musicians. I know she doesn't process things through her head. I know that, which is to me is the absolute only way I can work. And the only way I want to work is just not to think. People say, "What do you think about when you're playing?" And I say, hopefully nothing, because it's just got to be, I guess, in your spinal column. But anyway, maybe she's thinking while she's playing, but I don't think so. And there are people who can do both.
Yeah,
I'd like to be able to do
it's
both.
a tough question to really answer. What do you think about when you're playing? But you know, it's sitting next to you the last couple nights, and I'm watching you. And when you come down on that piano, you sort of know what you're going to hit first, and then you see what happens.
That's right. Oh, the president of Alligator Records, for whom I've done some recording, once said to me, you know, when you play and I'm recording you, I hear things that I think are clams, and then they become Clams Casino. And that's exactly right. I mean, I love, you know, you make mistakes and then you make them into, that's
right.
the fun.
Right.
But what you've probably also noticed the last few nights is that when I'm playing with other people, especially wonderful musicians like that, that we kind of merge. I mean, it's like, you know, the guitar plays a little line and I can accompany him and play something else, and, you know, it's I don't think there's any more close relationship that you can have with a human being than to play music with them, even if you never talk to them ever. But it's like, for that time, you are one, and you know, you never get that way with otherwise.
Yeah, there was some great feels last night, and I was going to ask you. You already sort of answered me. What makes you happy with a backup band?
You know what makes me happy? When I first started using backup bands, I thought that I wanted them to play what I was hearing. You know, that if I had a saxophone and I could control what they played. But that's really not what I want. What I want is for them to play something that surprises me. That because they're them and I'm me, and I can't. The only analogy I can think of is probably too obscene for this show, but for this archive.
Oh, try me.
But you know, well, and I say this about, I mean, it's true. It's like making love to another person or people, I guess, instead of to yourself. If you do it to yourself, you know, it always works, and you know exactly what to do. But if there are other people involved, it surprises you, and it's much more fun. Much more fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't tell your wife. No.
No, I won't. The other night you played a song. You said it was the first song you ever wrote, except the one about bubbles when you wrote.
Right. I don't usually mention that one.
Right.
I was 4.
What was the name of that song when you wrote when you were 4?
All the Pretty Bubbles.
All the Pretty Bubbles. And was it bluesy?
No, not at all. But it was
Okay.
it was very interesting. It was very interesting structure. It went all the pretty bubbles I see, all the pretty bubbles I see, all the pretty bubbles I see. You know, it kept going up like the bubbles. I mean, it's so I wasn't quite separating music from other realities. I was a kid.
But the one you said you wrote first, I thought was a pretty sophisticated song for the first one. But you said you didn't write really until well into your career.
No, I guess I wrote that in '71, and I started, my first paying gig was in '62. But you know, there's so many great songs out there that I would much rather take those songs and learn from them and make them my own. And you know, why would I want to write songs when there's such great songs out there? You know, Please Send Me Someone to Love, or It Hurts Me Too, or you know, all these great songs. But I got so angry in 1971. I didn't have any way to communicate, that I couldn't communicate, except I just wrote a song, and it helped.
Turned out to be an angry song?
It was a very angry song. It was a very angry song. It was, I was 26 years old, and I was getting rid of the second husband at that point. I was always, you know, a little bit ahead of myself. And very happy to be getting rid of him, and angry because he, you know, I was needing to get rid of him. So it really helped. The second song I wrote, which was right after, was about this new guy I'd met who was also a problem. But he mellowed out. We've been together since 1971.
That's great. Being a professional musician and the process of trying to be a professional musician, has that made relationships harder to keep.
Yeah, it absolutely has. I had to find somebody who, I don't know if it was because of his being raised by women, strong women, or what, but I had to find somebody who was happy for me to be successful at something that he couldn't do, and who doesn't have a jealous bone in his body, or if he does, he certainly has never showed it. It doesn't seem to be in his repertoire. Not just sexual jealousy, but any kind of jealousy. Mm-hmm. And all of the women that he's always, liked have all been very strong and very independent, and so that worked out very well. But prior to that, I've had a lot of men who, and I know that male musicians have the same problem. Men fall in love with me because I play music, and then they want me to stop playing music. Huh?
Huh?
I'm going to write a song about that. But
That's,
I know that happens to men too. It's just
sounds like a song, all right?
It does. I mean, we should.
Well, as the club scene, a little shifting of gears here. How has the club scene changed for you in the last 25, 30 years?
Well, in the last, I mean, it ebbs and flows. There was a period of time in I guess it was in the 80s, maybe it was the late 70s, where people just weren't coming out to clubs. I guess they were going to the discos. Most people, many people, excuse me, but there were still people coming to the clubs. They were all bikers. And in fact, I wrote a song for them because I really appreciated that they came out. But, blues, live music seems to ebb and flow. But right now we're in a big ebb because I think people are staying home and playing with their computers. So live music in general is not...
well, yeah, it almost goes along with the record sales
Oh.
thing.
Record sales, that has, I think, to do with downloading. I really do.
Yeah.
And people come up to me at shows and they say, I love your music so much. I made copies of your CD for all my friends. And I'm thinking, what am I supposed to say to this person? Thank you? I mean, I have another you to say,
Yeah.
But it used to be, and not so long ago, that people would come up at shows and they would buy everything you had. One of each. And now, they'll buy one. And it may be the economy. I don't know what. There's so many factors. People say, well, they don't allow smoking in clubs anymore. I know a lot of people who, I, for one, prefer to go to clubs that don't have smoking. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's probably somewhat of a wash. But there are all these reasons. I think part of it is just that people are getting older and they're not out looking for love anymore. I think there was a lot of that.
I see.
Don't you think?
Yeah. Well, plus the younger generation now, buying music for the younger generation is almost like a novelty or something. Like, oh, you're buying music.
Yeah.
I can get it. They can get it.
Well, another thing, there's a lot of factors. Another thing is that with all the computers and everything, people can make their own music more easily, which is lovely. But a lot of times it's not that good, but a lot of times people can't tell the difference. Mm. One of the things that I think is happening is that people who are part-time musicians or who are retiring, and I've got nothing against that, I'm all for it, but a lot of times they think, well, I just play for $10. And the club owners say, great, $10, and they're worth every penny, and then people go out to the clubs and they say, well, I hate this music. Music is terrible. There's no good music anymore. Well, they're right, But there is hope. And I was just talking to a drummer friend of mine about this on the phone just this afternoon. He just did some shows at libraries in New Jersey. And I've been doing shows at libraries here. I've done shows in schools. He's saying we just have to find other venues, other ways, because people do come out to shows. They just don't go to bars. Yeah. They come to festivals, they go to concerts and town squares, and so we just, I don't care, as long as I get to play.
Right. And you do a lot of schools now. What attracts you to that?
I never thought I would want to do that. I hated school, and I just, I, 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 I just never wanted to even be inside a school again, and and I didn't think I had the skills necessary to to play for kids. But as it turns out, the same, and you know this is true, the same skills you develop playing for drunks. It's the same skill playing for kids, isn't that right? I mean, it's the attention thing. It's the attention problem, so I love it, and I love changing people's lives and making people, doing for people what Big Bill Broonzy did for me back in 1949. I mean, music has real healing power. And being a kid, people think, oh, being a kid, it's so carefree. It's horrible. I mean, it's a terrible time, and I think kids need music more than anyone.
Especially you mentioned yesterday about the playing for that middle school, junior high age. And that's
I love
a tough
eighth
crowd.
grade. I love it. I love eighth grade. I go in there and they're belligerent and they're not going to like this, and this is not their kind of music. And I mean, within moments, you've got them. And I think part of it is just because they never hear live music. But I really do try to, I try to do songs that will talk to the people I'm playing for. You know, and I'm not going to do Mary Had a Little Lamb for eighth graders. And I'm also not going to I'm not going to do for eighth graders. But I can do things like "Tain't Nobody's Business What I Do," or one I wrote called "Don't You Tell Me." You know, things like that. I also, well, for the high school kids, I will do, there's a song called "Skin and Bones" that's a Roosevelt Sykes tune it's not about AIDS, but it sure could be. You know, it's about, watching somebody die of something that they did something that, made them get it, and but not for the junior high kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're really, and they walk out of there, a lot of them, I believe that they walk out of there thinking, wow, that's my music. That's music that speaks to me. And that's what I want to do.
It's the lyric form of the blues. It works well for teachers, I have found out, because they can have the kids write that AABA form fairly easily, and they can tell their little stories and all that. So it's a good connection.
It's wonderful, and I love it when schools, when when I show up and the kids have written poems that I can. Sometimes they're so deep. I mean, there was one about who wrote about their grandfather dying, or their grandparents dying, and how much they missed them. I mean, it was just exquisite. It was just beautiful, a lot of feeling, and I really, yeah. And
when you're in that situation, because I've seen you do that, there you are on the piano in front of all these kids, and here's this stack of lyrics, from the third or fourth graders. When you put that in front of you, talk about their grandfather dying, do you wonder, should I share this with the whole school here?
I do wonder. And sometimes there are ones that I don't. Mm-hmm. In fact, there have been times when I've talked to the teacher afterward. I mean, there's ones where they're being abused by their parents, or they feel that they are. Mm-hmm. There's a lot where they're being abused by their siblings, and I'm right. Really into that one. But not sexually abused, but
yeah.
But yeah, there are ones. But mostly they're pretty silly. Mostly there, and a lot of them are about school. In fact, that always leads me into that song "School Day," that Chuck Berry song that I do, because it's wonderful for the kids to know that other people hated school and they wrote about it.
Right.
So yeah.
Getting back to your songwriting for a moment, last night during the concert you said something to the effect that you're not in control when you're writing a song.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know.
Who's in control?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But, well, I think I've heard fiction writers talk about this too. I suppose I could have wrestled. I was talking about writing an intro to a song, because like all that classic blues stuff that Bessie Smith and the Ma Rainey and all that stuff has got those little introductions that have almost nothing to do, certainly nothing to do musically with the song. And I really wanted to write one, and I couldn't, and I actually even wrote a song that was very, very much like those songs, a thing called "What's Good for the Gander is Good for the Goose," but I couldn't seem to get an intro for it. So when I finally did write an intro, what came afterward, I had no. I could have probably wrestled it into and used it for a classic blues type song, but it just really led into this New Orleans rhythm, and so I went with it. A lot of my best songs sort of do write themselves. Then you have to rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, and that's certainly true. But the ones that I say, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write today, I'm going to write about this thing I saw in the newspaper, it'll be a good song, it'll sell lots. They're crap. You know, they never.
And if someone said commissioned you to write, either another musician or something, even if you had sort of a monetary incentive, they're going to pay you to write a song.
I've never had that happen, but I have had situations. There were a couple of times where people wanted a song that had certain criteria, like a Christmas song, for example, which is great because I'm Jewish. Well, I'm not even Jewish, but so was Irving Berlin, by the way, who wrote White Christmas and Easter Parade. But anyway, that was a good example. He wanted a Christmas song. He wanted it for the band Sapphire, so he wanted it to be kind of humorous. He wanted us to all three voices there, and it needed to be able to be played by the instrumentalists and the instruments that we had. So that was, lots of criteria, and it was easy to write. I joke about this. I don't know if I've done it here, but the hardest thing for me is not writing. The words are easy; they just come. The music is easy. The problem is finding something to write about. Subject matter. So, I don't think it would be hard to do that. You're going to pay me some money to write a song?
Well, let's see what I got with me. Take credit. Yeah, you mentioned that the idea of writing a blues song if you're not suffering.
Right. Well, actually, that was an inspiration for a song.
Yeah. Well, that's what I love about the blues, is that it's so you can do whatever you want.
It's very, very open. Yeah. And people, of course, I write stuff that's not that AAB form all the time. But people say, how can you write blues? How can you? My jazz friends say, oh, it's so dull. It's, it's so limited. And I say, are you familiar with haiku? Because you have limitations. And even if the form isn't that AAB form, there are chords you would almost never use in blues, like major 7. I guess that's what it's called, right? Is that right? I've done it, though.
Exactly right.
Bruce Siegler said, I will never have a major 7 on my label, and I threw one in. Anyway.
What a funny thing to say.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I know what he means. Yeah. It's very loungy.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so there are limitations, and I love them.
People think that freedom is such a good thing sometimes, but I think it sometimes makes it harder. There's too much freedom it can be hard to deal with.
Yeah. Well, having limitations gives you a different kind of freedom. Mm-hmm. You don't have to, it's like having a great bass player like I've had the last few days, and a great drummer. There are things I don't have to think about, so that frees me up to think about other things.
How did the idea for Sapphire come about?
There was no idea. It was totally random. There was this woman who used to come up to me at shows and say she wanted me to teach her guitar, and I said, you know what? You want to learn guitar? Go over here. This guy gives lessons, or this gal gives lessons, and they know what they're doing, and they, so take lessons from them. And 3 years she hounded me, and I finally said, fine. And I gave her lessons, and she learned very quickly. I mean, she learned very quickly, as much as she wanted to learn. And then she started doing an occasional job. Started doing some things with another accompanist, another guitar player. And occasionally, I would call her for a job, or she'd call me for a job, and we'd do something together. And then one day there was a room that I think they called her, or I guess it was her, and they wanted. It was a big room, and she felt that we needed, or I felt we needed another person. And so we asked this woman who I was teaching a class, nothing to do with music in. This was during, well, it's a long story. This is during an era when I was putting my daughter through college, so I was doing some non-musical things. So she joined us for that one gig. and they asked us back. And then other people asked us back. And they kept asking us back. It was totally random. The fact that we were all women was totally random. You know, it was no thought involved at all, at least not on my part, and I don't think it was on anybody's part. So, but it ended up being very successful.
Wasn't, obviously then it wasn't a contrived, gee, if we had a
No.
with 3 women, we'll be able to get
No,
more
you had a
gigs.
black, a Jew, and no, that didn't.
Okay.
That did not
Uh-huh.
happen. People, I'd love people to say that we were that smart, but we weren't.
Mhm.
And but the truth was that there were at that time, no other bands like us. Now there are others. There's the Three Bitchin' Babes, and there's another one that's named after a jewel, Rubies or something. But I mean, there had been girl groups, but not recently, and not that played the instruments. So I guess at one time there was the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
Remember that?
that was a whole big band.
That was a big band, yeah.
You have grandchildren?
I have one.
You have one
I
grandchild.
have one granddaughter. In fact, it's her birthday soon. She, a great drummer. She's a great drummer.
I just wondered sometimes, or your children or your grandchildren, what do they think about what Grandma does for a living?
Well, my daughter, she has to, she said once she's been in more green rooms by the time she got to high school than most people are ever,
Oh, because she went with you.
She went with me. She was, she was a kid. I couldn't leave her alone. And I couldn't afford to hire a babysitter. So she'd come and in coffee houses, she'd help make coffee, and she'd sleep in the green room. And so she's into it. In fact, she's done some stuff herself. I think she's great, but she's a great singer, and she plays guitar, and she used to play accordion, but then after she got pregnant, I guess she got out of habit. But she plays organ and things. And when I put together an album, all my family, because they all play. I mean, and in fact, she's on one cut playing rhythm guitar. But when I went to observe the family to find musicians, I realized that there were lots of guitar players, lots of keyboard players, violinists, bass players, no drummers, not a single drummer. So I got sticks and a video from Sam Zucchini on how to play drums for kids, and I gave it to everybody under the age of 10. And I don't know if their parents are still speaking to me. But anyway, my granddaughter really got into it, and she's been taking private lessons, I guess, for about 3 years now, and she is great. She's really great. So next, if there's going to be a Family Way Part 2, I'll have a drummer.
Now you'll have a whole rhythm section.
Although she's starting to play piano, too. So.
Let me play a couple pieces of music for you here, just to see if there's have any particular comments about.
Get out of that bed, wash your face and hands.
That's funny. We just did one of these last
Get
night.
out of that bed,
Big Joe Turner.
wash your
Yeah.
face and hands.
I don't think that's Pete Johnson on piano. Though.
Well, you
Yeah, he
get
did
in
some
that
stuff.
kitchen, make some noise with the pots and pans.
Yeah, that's you talk about the roots of rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Big Joe Turner was booked at a festival in Norfolk, Virginia, very early on the band Sapphire's career. I mean, we hadn't played any big gigs at all, really. And he got sick, and they needed a substitute, and they called us, and that was our first big gig. And unfortunately, he died. I mean, you sort of hate to, feel good about that, but well, there's a Memphis Slim song. What makes one person happy is bound to make another one sad. So, but we weren't happy, but it was great to have that gig, and we played for thousands and thousands of people. It was wonderful.
What is there a line between something that pushes something over from blues into rock and roll?
Nah, that's blues. I mean, come on. But that is rock and roll, and that's what was on the That was on the jukebox when I was coming up. I mean, we had some stuff which I would definitely consider blues. Big Joe Turner was one, and he did some wonderful stuff. I said the stuff he did with Pete Johnson just knocked me out. But anyway, yeah, Big Joe.
Yeah. How about this one?
Wild, wild young men like to have a good time. While all young men like to have a good time. While all boyfriends like to lose
This
their
rhythm.
mind.
Yeah.
Wild men dig me, but I love a cool one. Wild men dig me, but I love a cool one.
She's wonderful. She was a wonderful person too.
Mm-hmm.
She was great. I hope that somebody had a tape recorder and talked to her, because
We
you
did an
couldn't
interview
shut
with
her up. You
We
did an
did,
interview
yeah.
with her? Did she tell you all the dirt on everybody and everything?
She did not. Not to my memory. It was really early on when we did it.
She was everywhere. She knew everyone. She knew all the. I mean, I'm not saying she talked bad about people,
Uh-huh.
but she had such wonderful memories.
Uh-huh.
And, yeah, she was a wonderful. She was one of the. We lost her this year. We lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
But she was on that jukebox, and she was a great singer,
And crossed a lot of genres.
absolutely jazz, blues,
You know.
soul. I don't know if I had soul at that time. I mean, what we used to call, they used to call it rhythm and blues, rock and roll. Now the rhythm and blues is something completely different now, right?
Right. The R&B, like.
Yeah. But yeah, she was really good music. To my mind, is you can't categorize it. I mean, really. I mean, Hank Williams, is that country? Well, I don't know. Talk about blues. I mean, yeah, Ruth Brown.
Right. Well, we were talking about being stuck for material to write about. And I thought it was interesting the way you took this idea of, like, I'm not sad enough to write blues.
When I wake up in the morning, he's always by my side, bringing me my breakfast, and he keeps me satisfied. He carries in the paper, and he reads me all the news. He really makes it hard for me to sing the blues.
Okay, so you're sitting there, you've got this idea for a song.
Right.
Do you sit at the piano and work on it?
No, I can do that in my head. I mean, it's good later on I get to a piano, but I can, night before last, there's a song I do that I was going to try a different rhythm, a different pattern with the piano on, and I lay around and did it in my head. I mean, I have a good musical imagination.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I was at somebody's house. I was at my, unfortunately now retired, booking agent's house, and I was whining about, I got to write songs for my new album, and then I got to write songs for a new Sapphire album, and I don't have any ideas, and then I thought, well, maybe I could write about that, So I remember I had a big yellow pad, and I wrote, I think I filled, I don't know, probably the whole pad, and I'd cross things out, and I'd start again, and I'd do, you know how many rhymes there are with blues? But blues does not have to be sad. I mean, it's almost like the sad stuff makes people feel like they're not alone, and the happy stuff makes them happy. I mean, it's just it's a therapeutic thing. But yeah, no, I don't. I writing at the piano. I have to get to a piano eventually.
Uh-huh.
But I did. I had that left hand thing in my mind, which is sort of a Memphis thing. Actually, I stole it off a bass player from Texas. Do I dare tell this? Yeah, I'll tell it. I used to, at blues festivals, if I heard a bass player who was doing stuff that I was interested in, I always had a guitar in my room, so I'd invite them up to my room, under false pretenses probably, and get them to show me what they were doing. And so that's where I got that little, I think I added a little twirl to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can think these things pretty well.
Mm-hmm. And then there's that one sort of chord near the end, which you probably could call a substitution. Right to sing, the sort of.
Oh, I'm going down?
Yeah, I mean it's not a normal 5/4 progression. Or something.
No.
So, is that something that you might just be fooling around with chords that match what you're trying to sing?
No.
No.
It's something that, I mean, I suppose I do that sometimes. Most of the time, I hear it in my head and I try to find it on the piano.
Oh.
And I do listen to a lot of different things, which is probably why my music isn't strictly straight ahead blues, which is, I don't want to hear just straight ahead blues, you know. I mean, those old guys weren't playing straight ahead blues. The people I admire most, they weren't even playing all, you know, major and minor at the same time sometimes, and 12-bar blues would become 13 and 11. I mean, you know, but I listen to everything. I mean, I listen to Birds, I listen to jazz, I listen to classical, I listen to country, gospel, I listen to gospel. You know, so that all goes in, and I guess it all comes out too.
Do you spend a lot of time listening? I mean, when you're at home, you've got a day off, are you a person who deliberately goes and puts on music as you do your...
Never as I'm doing anything.
Oh.
I can't listen to music when I drive. It's really dangerous. I've tried, and I can't do both things. I'm not good with, I don't like background music at all.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I will, I don't listen to music like I used to before I became so involved in it. I mean, I really just, I have to admit I don't. But I do, you know, at festivals I get to hear other people, and sometimes I'll go out and hear other people. My life right now, I have people at home I take care of. My mother-in-law lives with me, and, you know, my mother is close by, and so I don't go out as much as I did or will in the future sometime. I mean, I certainly plan to spend more time listening to other people, but I love hearing live music. I mean, listening to records is so pale by comparison. I mean, to me, it's a person who, music that was not nearly as good live is better than terrific canned music, and I don't know why that is. I couldn't tell you in a million years, but, and I do listen, you know, I'll listen to people like Charles Brown, or, you know, I mean, I listen to all kinds of people, but when I heard him live, that really got in. It's just different.
It was that big Bill Broonzy moment all over again, huh?
Yeah, oh, absolutely, and you know, I never got to see him live, never. But he was live on the radio.
Yeah.
You know, it was almost, and I, you know, yeah. There are a lot of people I regret. I mean, there's this jazz piano player I heard on the radio once when I shouldn't have been listening to the radio. A guy named Gene Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, that's really great. I want to go see him. So I wrote his record company, and I said, could you tell me where he's going to be? Could you put me on his mailing list? I've got all these frequent flyer miles. I'm going to come hear him sometime. And it didn't work out, and it didn't work out. I kept thinking, well, next month, and he died. You know, just very unexpectedly, suddenly. You know, you just got to go see him while you can, because
you never know.
You never know, and you never regret it.
Yeah, yeah. Some people, do people come up to you, young musicians, and say, how do I do what you're doing? How do I get where I want to go?
You mean musically or in the business?
I think they probably mean in the business.
Yeah, because musically I have a very good answer.
Well, give me
both. No, I
can't.
can't give it to you because it's in my computer. I wrote an essay.
I remember that essay, yes.
I wrote an essay, and it's, every time somebody asks me that, I say, here, you know, because it's as far as in the music business, you know, I guess the first thing I would say is you have to really want to do it, and you have to, your idea of making a living, you know, you have to be willing to, you know, not have maybe a big house or a new car, or you know, you have to be priorities, you know, and it's money is important. You have to have enough to live on, but you only have a certain amount of time. You can always get more money, and you don't want to spend your time doing something you hate. So anyway, you have to be willing to make your lifestyle fit what your income's going to be. And that when I went on the road, when my daughter was finished with college, first thing I did is I had to have a day job for a while. I still played, but not much. First thing I did is I bought a trailer. I bought a piece of land and a trailer.
Oh.
So, paid for it. So when I started out, I didn't really need that much income. I had a place to live. Anyway, the trick is, not to go into the business thinking you're going to make $1 million, or even what is it?
What's the best way to get a...
Roy Bookbinder says something like, "Yeah, this is a great business. You can make hundreds of dollars a year."
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
There was something about how do you get a musician to make $2 million? Give them $4 million,
right?
Or something like
They tell about farmers too.
Oh.
Or what are you going to do now that you've won the lottery? Well, I guess I'll just keep playing until the money runs out. Yeah. But anyway, so that's the first thing I tell people. Is that you're not in it. You're not in it for the money. You're in it because you love the music. And then, I think it's very important for people to realize that it is a business. And if you're not willing to do the business, or if you're in a position to pay somebody else to do it, I think it's very important to find a booking agent for sure, and a manager if you possibly can. And you'll have even less money, but you have more time to play music, more time. And these people, they know a whole lot more about business than I do. It's like if you're going to do your own taxes, you're going to end up paying more than if you hire somebody to do your taxes. So it's the same thing. So, but it is a business. Somebody once said that tell them if they can possibly do anything else that they should do it.
I've had jazz musicians say that. It's not a choice, it's like something you're driven to do. Like if you have a choice to be a lawyer or a musician, be
a lawyer, right?
And play their music.
That's a really good,
Yeah.
That's a good point, because there is no choice.
Yeah. You seem fortunate with your management right now.
I'm very fortunate with my management. I've been very fortunate with my booking agents. I've been very fortunate in so many ways. Musicians, golly, I can't tell you how nice those older musicians have been to me. People like Johnny Johnson, people like Sunnyland Slim, have all taken me under their wing, and they don't do things for me, but they show me things, and they encourage me. To find that Johnny Johnson came out to shows to see me, that meant the world to me. It scared the piss out of me, but it meant something to me. And now that he's gone, Little Richard once, I was playing in a thing in L.A. with Sapphire, and he came up to me. In fact, he was giving an award to Ruth Brown. That was great. But anyway, he came up afterward and said to me, "I really like your piano playing." And yeah, right. It meant a lot. So, and people have opened doors, older musicians. John Cephas is the reason that Sapphire ever got heard. There was a baritone sax player who had a studio in Florida who's no longer with us, a guy named Bob Greenlee, who got Sapphire on Alligator. Musicians have been, and there's a saxophone player who got me started in this great thing with schools.
Well, he must have been crazy.
He was nuts, right? So, people have been very helpful, and if it was just me, I'd still be playing in little motel lounges for $50 a night.
Is it worth it? Why? Let's see. How do I ask this? If you're thinking of doing another recording, you're going to put out another CD, what is the main reason for doing it nowadays?
Well, it depends on the CD. I am thinking about putting out another CD, and the reason is that I would like people to remember that I'm here. I'd like to be on the radio. I'd like to be available, have something out there so that I can be nominated for an award. Mm-hmm. I'd like people to hear me and think, "Oh yeah, let's hire her." That's part of the reason for this new CD. Part of it is because I have a lot of originals that I've never really been happy with the way that they were done, and I want to do them again. Or I've got some new ones that I want to do. So this one's going to be all originals. But the album before this one has an even more interesting background. It's called In a Family Way. It's all my family. And at holidays, Thanksgiving, we get together. And when other families start bickering, we all pick up instruments and start playing. And it's so joyful, that experience, and so musical and so varied, that I just really wanted I wanted that saved for posterity.
That's a good reason.
The first recording that I did solo, which was really late in my career, for a long time I didn't believe in recording because, I mean, I had opportunities, but I just felt like Mary Martin felt about videotaping, is it's going to take away from live performance. And you know what? I was right. I mean, look at, well, people are staying home and, anyway.
Yeah.
But that first recording I did because I was cussing a lot of musicians, Jimmy Yancey and Big Maceo and all these wonderful musicians who had not recorded very much in their lifetimes and didn't leave a legacy for me. And I was angry, and I thought, wait a minute, maybe people are going to feel that way about me someday. You know, Pinetop Smith is the real one. It was 4 cuts or something. Louise Johnson, same thing, 4 cuts. But anyway, so that was the reason I first started recording, is I thought maybe, you know, somebody might want to hear.
Is there a dream project that you have here that you'd like to?
Well, after the last couple of nights, I'd like to record with that band.
Well,
great.
That could be arranged. It was fun.
We have to do that.
Yeah.
Our dream project. Wow. I mean, it'd be nice to have enough of a budget that I could have, you know, a great gospel B3 player on some songs and a great gospel choir and you know, somebody playing vibes and things, pedal steel. You know, it would be fun to have, not to be at all concerned about the restrictions of money. But on the other hand, same thing, because of those restrictions, you know, you have to be more artistic, and you have to be, it's more of a craft because you have the restrictions. So.
Yeah, you think of reading about some of the bands that have these unlimited budgets and they spend 4 months in the studio
On one song. Can you imagine? Yeah, my sister has played on some of that stuff.
Really?
I'm not going to call any names, but you know,
Okay.
where they put in every note, and it took, of course, she was paid very well for this, and I'm sure she contributed a lot.
Yeah. Where are you bound for after you leave here? Home, I hope. For
Home for a little while, and I think I've got a couple of gigs, one in Charlottesville. I'm not sure, you know, I have to look at my calendar, but you know why I don't know anything? Because next month I'm going to Italy for a couple of weeks.
Oh.
So that's, you know, that's kind of blowing everything else out of my mind. I'm going to
That's great.
be playing in Torino with a band of my choosing, although I haven't met you guys before then, but a couple of great players, and we're gonna spend I guess basically a week or 10 days, something like that. We'll be always in the same hotel, but then we'll be going to different little places around.
Nice.
Oh, doesn't
I
get
bet
much
they're
better
going to
than
love
that.
you.
Well, I hope so. I know I'm going to love them. I've been to Italy before, and it's I love traveling overseas. I really do. I can't think. The only place that I did not particularly enjoy, or as much, I played in Hong Kong. I had a 2-week engagement at the Jazz Club of Hong Kong before the handover, and I felt uncomfortable there. It was there was not a single Chinese person in this club. You know,
It was just a British
it was a
thing.
British thing. They hired me a band, and they were great musicians. The drummer was from India, the guitar player was from Australia, the bass player was from Philippines. I mean, nobody was from China, and I found that uncomfortable. Although I loved playing with the guys, and you know, the audiences were great, and you know, so. But I love Eastern Europe, Western Europe. I tell you what, I really want to do is go to Sweden, because my nephew, who plays bass on my family album, he's moved to Sweden now. So if I want to see him, I gotta go to Sweden.
I'm going to take Bonnie, is there something I should have asked her?
I think you've just done a marvelous job. I'm sitting here thinking I am so grateful for this interview. This is so important. And
Okay.
your questions are so, I imagine they're well thought out, but they come across as being so spontaneous.
Okay.
It's marvelous. I'm just having a ball.
I'm just really honored. I mean, I know who the other people are in this archive, and I'm going, wow, Milt Newton, yeah, Joe
Right,
Williams.
have your name on the same list as
Yeah, I'm
Milton.
impressed.
Yeah. Well, I really like talking to people who are able to cut it in this business, you know. And not all the people I've interviewed have been able to do that. You know, some of them have found a lot of jazz musicians these days, not by choice, end up teaching at universities and so forth, and then they play when they can. And I think they pretend they like it, but I'm not sure that they really do.
I bet they do.
You know, they like the steady paycheck and the benefits and all that.
But I know that, you know, like my nephew went to, you know, school, Manhattan School of Music, studying jazz. And, but even before that, when he was a kid, he went to jazz camp, and his counselor was, oh dear, great drummer.
Shaughnessy?
No, his daughter plays violin. He's one of my favorite drummers, and I'm.
Oh, Max Roach?
Max Roach, yeah. He was his counselor. And he also studied with Mel Hinton, and, you know, these guys, and they give so much to the students. As long as the students are really interested in it, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's I know I'm lucky. And that's one nice thing about, I mean, Kenji lives in Sweden, and they really support the arts there, and they really support the artists there. And he, I think he's going to be teaching, but he's going to be teaching because he wants to. And he plays whenever he wants, and he has health care, and he, you know, has they give a stipend to artists. And well, there are other countries. I mean, Canada. I've thought about emigrating to Canada for a number of reasons, but they have very strict rules about who can emigrate. You have to have money, you have to be young, you have to be healthy, you have to know French, you know, all these different criteria, which with George, a couple of years ago, I might have managed. But now, you know, we're even older, and he's had problems, and we all have problems. But then I found out from, unfortunately, somebody who's no longer with us, but if you're an artist, you're in.
Really?
They consider you valuable, you're in.
Some attitude.
I like that, yeah.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you for, it's been a real pleasure. And,
Likewise. Oh.